Isaac. Jacob. Jacob. My main question. Isaac. Jacob. I guess my main question is why the brotherhood is.
Oh, how about you next? Anybody open to answer? Because I'm discerning priesthood, so it's a conflict of interest.
I discerned. Well, I thought it's a separate vocation. I feel called more to a life of getting out there among those to whom we minister. Which I believe that's a priesthood. He was, of course, for example, I staff our food shelf regularly. Weekly we operate it. It's an honor just to not only collect and provide the material resources for each of them, but to at the same time be open and request any prayer intentions that we transmit and do that moment go on. Sit down with them and pray with them. I think it's a freer opportunity available.
Do you guys like to read? Yes. I recommend the book Living Sacrifice. It's religious life, discerning religious life. And I've talked to priests and religious about how they view their identity. And both of us would say that it's sacramental. So, we really enter into the Eucharist in a very deep way. However, the distinction is that we deepen our already existing sacraments of baptism and confirmation, where the priest takes on holy orders, so that's an entirely different sacrament that unites them to the Eucharist in a powerful way. However, we, as laity and religious brothers, you can say especially, receive the gift of that sacrament in a profound way, in that we become totally united to it by our very being, by our presence, by the work that we do. The sacrifice we offer has a greater efficaciousness, greater effectiveness up towards the Lord. And so that's a great blessing for me to be able to enter into that. And then another distinction is that priests who are not religious like we are, like a diocesan priest for instance, they're not obligated to take vows of poverty, chastity, and obedience. They take promises. So, for example, there's priests who will live in houses. They can do that. They can own their own property. They can own their own material wealth, and they don't necessarily have to be checked. Yes, they are celibate mostly, but there have been priests who have had wives, although it's less common. That would never happen with us. We're an order of brothers. We keep each other accountable in our brotherhood. And then finally, obedience. A diocesan priest has obedience to his bishop. Yes, he should ideally do what the bishop asks him to do. However, diocesan priests do have a great level of autonomy in being able to run their own parish. We basically have more direct obedience with those who are set above us to help us to grow in deeper. So I hope that's clarifying. Yeah. Yeah, and they don't necessarily live in brotherhood either. So priests can really kind of be lonely. There's a there's less of a degree of accountability, so they can maybe go off the rails. Like, one thing for me is, I love to play video games. I just love them. But I used to be an addict. And I'm still allowed to play, but I have people like him and others who are saying like, brother, you know, you're playing a little bit too much. You're not praying enough. You're not spending time with your brothers. You're just like always in the zone. And it's like, yeah, you know what? You're right. I gotta pull back. Priests don't have that. They could just play limitlessly, and I mean, I don't think they would, but I mean, it could happen. And so that's another gift of the brotherhood is keeping each other accountable.
Yeah. I have one more. Do the keys that you have, are those symbolic of any type, or are they just like your house keys?
Well, I'm going to become the Pope someday.
They're just the keys, just the house keys.
I noticed that.
I've dropped them in the snow and lost them quite a bit, and so I'm kind of knocking on the door, and he lets me in. There's a story of St. Francis called Perfect Joy, where he gets locked out, and he says to Brother Leo, like, they won't let us in, it's snowing, we're cold, we gotta stay the night out here, this is perfect joy. And I'm like, that's me, that's what happens a lot. Yeah. What did you want to say?
Oh, I was going to ask what that is, but I think that's just, is that just the cross to your crucifix?
Oh,
I mean, that crucifix out.
rosary. Do you want to share the story? Yeah.
The top is a symbol more than St. Francis. But it originated in the day of St. Francis himself.
Mm-hmm.
And that
Yeah. This is from the Greek letter T, and traditionally it was believed that Jesus was crucified in a Y shape rather than the standard cross that we see today. And so St. Francis would carry this around as a symbol of getting back to the simplicity and poverty that he should experience. Because just like today, in his own day, there was a lot of corruption in the church. Bishops were extremely wealthy. Some of them even had wives. It was crazy. Like, the church had just gotten so far from its original gospel mission. St. Francis, his mission was to bring people back to the original roots of the gospel. And so that's why he would carry this cross around to signify, this is what we traditionally believed about Jesus. Let's draw back into that simplicity. So that's kind of how we operate as brothers. It's like, we don't go through the government, we don't go through the hierarchy necessarily, but we do what God calls us to do, and we hope to affect change through God's grace in our own lives and the lives of others. Any other questions? Good. Yeah, thanks for your questions, guys. Hey, can we ask something from you? Yes, of course.